that Gumiho can do about that. But these guys know what they're getting themselves into. At least I hope they do. To bump up the sound just a little bit from earlier today, probably. Not as much as I thought. In the top right is the Blue Zerg. That's the color. It is Reynor. In the bottom left is the Red Terran. It is Gumiho. Guess I gotta put his name up there because his clan tag doesn't show on this. Yeah. So now we're all good to go. This bracket is seriously stacked, guys, and there's a lot of series people want to see happen, and it's stacked in a way that everyone is of notable name, right? And there's no one like, oh, who's this guy on the bracket? But I don't know if it's stacked as in every single match should be completely even. I do see some potentials for 2-0s and later on for some 3-0s. So, I mean, I wanted to choose one that was potentially going to be even. These guys have played before online with some, you know, ping problems. I mean, I guess the other online tournaments would have played in probably would have defaulted them to the US Central. But considering this is the European server qualifier, you know, this is to cater to the Europeans, so they're in Europe. So that's probably, you know, a worse situation for Gumiho than the last time they played online, whenever that was. Was it 6 months ago, a year ago? I don't remember. But I know that they had really good matches. And, I mean, honestly, Gumiho is a fun guy to watch. But Reynor is kind of like the golden kid right now, right? Like, he had a blowout performance in Montreal, the first WCS that he was allowed to participate in because he's just so damn young. And he seems to be a really good kid with a good supporting family. It's just it's like wholesome memes all wrapped up into a StarCraft 2 player. You know what I mean? So I think everyone loves watching him. He also has a very entertaining play style. It's not like he's been winning these games on the back of Broodlord and Fester. He's been winning them with high action, APM all over the place, clever, annoying little run-bys, so on and so forth. So it's going to be a really good TVZ. Also, it's TVZ, and we all know that's the best matchup. So I think my reasons are justified to pick in this one. If this is your first time watching these qualifiers, the NA qualifiers already happened. Ooh, a quick third CC here. And the Korean qualifiers technically start tomorrow, but they're a little spread out, I guess, for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why. Like, the Korean server qualifiers start tomorrow. There's 2 Korean server qualifiers, both with 2 days each. I think it's like tomorrow, which is Wednesday, and then next Monday, and then the next Monday and Tuesday or something like that. It's kind of weird, but those are still to be a TBD. Or to be completed, I guess. I mean, it's already determined, but yeah. We'll see who makes that out of there. Innovation, Patience, and Maru, I believe, were the ones that made it out of the NA qualifiers. What is this, 2011 again? Everyone's taking over the NA scene. And here today, we do have a decent number of Koreans fighting for the spots against the Europeans who do have that advantage on the server. It's double elimination today. Qualifying matches are best of 5, but everything else is best of 3. With double elimination, you do still feel a little more confident. Top 2 advance from the winner's bracket, bottom 1 from the losers. There we go. There's it all summed up. Nice on a little box for you. Hopefully, I won't have to repeat myself, but we all know that I will, because not everyone's quite here yet. So, guys in chat, please do me a solid and have something on copy pasta. I don't know, just to get that explained nice and quick. So Gumiho with a fast third CC is something that Reynor should have known about. He's going to triple, double, quadruple check, and he really should be getting overload speed versus Gumiho, because if there's one guy who would have gone for battlecruiser rushes, I would have guessed Gumiho, but apparently a lot of Terrans are still doing it, so it's certainly a good thing to get in general in this matchup nowadays, at least until the shenanigans are kind of over with, and then especially against Gumiho. Still remains to be seen if he's going to go mech or bio, but he is going into, if this is, you know, if he's going to swap off after this tank, it's a very, very safe opening, but it would make sense considering how he knows how vulnerable he is. He knows that Reynor knows, and he knows, you know, so on and so forth. But it is going to be mech almost for sure now that it's both a tank here for safety. I mean, he could also just continue making Hellions, to be clear, but the tank's usually really safe. It'll cover you against those roach attacks as well. But he's also getting the armory, so, you know, again, technically, you could try and do some super late stim, but I'm thinking I'll put science points on mech here. Now, that's what Reynor wants to figure out. He wants to be absolutely sure of. He will not see the armory and could still be caught off guard by a Hellbat push, especially because it's not like a super early one, right? So that timing that goes in your brain. Oh, he sees that it's mech, by the way. Confirmed. When you see kind of the 2 base, you're not quite sure what they're doing. That's a bit gone, so you're starting to think about, okay, what weird attacks can I do with kind of a macro setup? And yeah, if they see an opportunity, if you're really trying to get to 4 bases, 75 drones, all the tech, and you barely made any lings or even roaches, then sure, Gumiho could absolutely attack you with some Hellbats. Maybe he's added a couple of Cyclones in there as well instead of the tanks. So you still have to be a little wary. But really, with everything that Reynor's been able to scout, and he has really been able to scout almost everything, he should feel somewhat confident droning here, and he's going to go up to 64 workers. Now, what we have Gumiho doing is interesting, not because I haven't seen it before, but because I have seen it before. This seems to be perhaps a new way to try and get some serious damage on the 4th base, especially when the Banshees fail, and the Banshees really haven't done anything so far. That we saw, I think it was Innovation did this earlier today in the Illumi League and the TVZ, and it was rather successful. It wasn't really taken care of that quickly, I guess is the better way to put it, so he was able to leave after stalling the 4th base out, but despite doing that little poke and prod, it looks like Gumiho saw something to tell him that's not really worth investing into. What he saw, I'm not sure, but it was probably just the mass amount of Ling Baneling. You know, like usually we'd say roaches to deal with mech, but against this tiny tank count, and, you know, Hellbats, like, they technically take more Banelings, right, than a Marine. They still are somewhat vulnerable to Banelings. Yeah, that amount of Lings and Banelings would have taken care of things. So Reynor, so far, getting up to his 4 bases without too much trouble. You know, it's not the greediest that he could have been, but he's not taking any damage, which is even better than being a little bit greedier. He's got a lot of queens to spread some creep, and he is adding on all those tech structures as well as going into the missile upgrade. So he is eventually going to go into roaches. But, you know, I think the goal for a lot of Zerg players is to just, unless you're going for an all-in of some sort, don't make roaches until you really have to. So in this case, you know, going straight up to that hive, we'll just make enough to make sure they can deal with any surprise attack. Now, initially, oh, here we go. I didn't think those Lings were going to take on those Hellions, but Gumiho probably didn't think so either. Or maybe the ping affected that, I'm not sure. He didn't pull back in time to start kiting them, and as such, loses a good chunk. Decent trade out there. Actually, a pretty good trade out there for Reynor, who also got the cancel on the command center, so really quite good. But I was going to talk about how Gumiho may have made a couple of tanks to be safe, but he is going into Cyclone Hellion, something we've seen every single Terran player do in mech so far. Reynor is in Europe right now, but they're probably playing the server. No! They are playing the European server qualifier. I'm pretty sure I've said this and explained that they will be on the European server like 3 or 4 times. So I'm sorry you got here just a little bit too late to hear that. They are definitely playing on the European server, and any Europeans who don't force the European server are crazy. This is their server qualifier, and they should take advantage of it. I'm sorry if I confused anyone with my talk about their previous online competition. So anyway, going back to the whole Cyclone mech type deal. I have a fast fusion core as well as 2 more starports already. This is what everyone in these qualifiers, in the Illumi League, and Ladder Heroes, I don't think we actually saw any mech in Ladder Heroes, but the point is, the past 3 days, basically every single mech player has gone for the Cyclone shenanigans, and I call them shenanigans. Clearly, Gumiho not looking for a specific timing, not being even like super maxing out on them. He's already on to bigger and better things with bigger range and whatnot. That's what they've been doing. So far, the Zergs have been pretty decent at defending against it. They seem to have a handle on it for the most part, unless things really already start to topple forward. You know, they lose drones, they don't realize it's mech because they have bad scouting, something along those lines. If that doesn't happen, it seems like the Zergs have a handle on this. But it does get tricky. I mean, you're given very powerful units that can technically snipe buildings that are suddenly mobile. So even though it's mech, it's not really the slow mech we might be used to. And that it does have those periods where suddenly you think, oh, I have enough, I'm fine. And then suddenly you don't. And you're like, oh, right, Cyclones. Okay, then. So you still gotta, you know, be a little wary. But what Gumiho is doing is maybe something that Reynor is not too familiar with. I mean, the difference of how many Terrans you can face in the European ladder is far different than the Korean ladder, as well as the style is different. And it's Gumiho, who tends to be on the forefront of advancing any mech strategies. So this is really good abducts. These are super good abducts. Oh my god. This is that last Banshee, though. But, you know, Reynor's gonna have to deal with a Terran player who, yeah, went into a Cyclone mech thing, but is already gonna have a ton of Liberators. And he did just use most of his abducts. Nope, just kidding, he has 5 Vipers. Okay, so he still has a few. I thought there were only 3. No, he has 6 Vipers. Oh my god. I like it, though. I think this is exactly what he should do, is get 6 Vipers. Hell, if he goes up to 8 Vipers, I'd be like, okay, maybe that's a little too much, but even then I'd be like, okay, yeah, I get it. I understand it. But yeah, if he was running out of abducts, then the Liberators don't really have something to answer for them, especially when they have range. The Hydras would lose their lives trying to go past 5 or 6 or however many he was going to have. The Reynor does not take the opportunity to bust in here, and there wasn't a lot left over, but doesn't want to go through that choke. He's very comfortable on his 5 bases. The creep spread is not really something to write home about, but it's basically doing the job, especially against mech. And Gumiho is, you know, trying to control it as much as possible. He does have some upgrades, but Reynor has better ones. 3-3 is already on the way. I mean, he did that attack without even having all of his Hydra upgrades finished. I mean, Reynor just, like, skipped forward a couple beats in this pace in the TVZ. But the thing is, like, as good as I think Reynor looks, because I've seen so many other Zerg players die. Uh-oh. Well, it's gonna get damage done. Oh my god, the eggs. Did they cancel? Did they kill? I think they were killed. Yeah, lordy. I woke up at 5:30. Give me a minute here. As good as it looks for Reynor, because he hasn't taken a ton of damage, even 13 drones at this point is not a lot of damage. It doesn't really, it almost, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it's not the full heart of this game, alright? Believe in the heart of the game. The real chunk of this game for Gumiho apparently was not about any early attacks, right? Quick in a 3cc, and apparently was not about the Cyclone Hellion stuff. It's more about this getting into air and getting a lot of bases. So this game will go on, despite what is a very fantastic start even for Reynor. It takes a few more drone losses, but you know, he's actually banking so much, even more than we've seen in some of our hour-long games. Right? And we had yesterday. Oh, and he goes down. I don't think he necessarily cares. He cares if he loses track of the army, and that's what I'm a little afraid of here, as he is dealing with a bunch of harassment. I don't think he cares about the drones, the hatcheries. I think he mostly cares that he's not on the other side of the map controlling the game. And as we see, the creep spread really is not getting very far out. You know, as I said, it's nothing to write home about, but now it's maybe even a point of critique. Just because, you know, there are going to be Blue Flame Hellion attacks, there are going to be Cyclone run-bys, and he's going to need as much advanced notice as possible, because Blue Shift is a pretty small map. So you'd think you'd be able to respond, but Cyclones do kill hatcheries fairly quickly. Ooh, that's a lot of abducts going in there. Feels confident enough to move forward. I don't think you can ever purely rely on Liberators, by the way. Not when the Zerg has abducts. So that was a lot of Liberators. They needed something on the ground to cover them. Even Blue Flame Hellions would have helped out against the massive amount of Hydras that there are. Now, this might be an overextension. The Liberators did siege up and get quite a few shots, and the Cyclones did come through to add their DPS. But Reynor is the one that's able to remax. The question is, does he have the larva to do so? He did lose a hatchery, which I guess I didn't mention, but if this is the old larva that's no longer attached to his hotkey, that's like one of the weird things about Zerg players. But if it isn't, then, well, he should have had some decent larva production. It's just a matter of remaxing instantly or you know, within 30 seconds. Evolution Chamber is now just being used to suck the energy into the Vipers. He's probably going to want to place some of those on the front lines. I mean, I think the goal right now for either player is not to let them get the corner bases, which they both... Oh, no, that's a barracks. Which they both are going to be trying to stall out. And then for Reynor, he's going to want to find the place that the Zerg army is. He's going to put maybe even Spore Crawlers on the front lines and stop him, Gumiho, from getting any more damage, any more expansion. Sorry, his damage is being done here. Lots of Hydras, really just mass Hydra here from Reynor, knowing he has to deal with those Liberators. And while he deals with them initially okay with all the abducts, I might go back to that point I was making earlier, where if Reynor wanted to go up to 8 Vipers, I don't think it'd be a problem. There's a time where Scarlet, that's a lot of SCVs dead, by the way. There's a time where Scarlet was going up to 10. I think even at one point she made 12. And, oh, she's the one I can remember. I know there were some other Zergs at the time doing it. This is like a year and a half ago. Probably more, really. And you know, I remember sitting there, I think it was casting with Rifkin, and we were like, is that really good? I don't know. And it didn't end up doing as well as I think she hoped. And this was versus Protoss, too. But I think against this composition, I think you want as many abducts as possible, because you can also start abducting the Cyclones. And you want even maybe a couple Blinding Clouds to really push those forward into your army. But maybe 5's enough, and I was totally wrong. I actually think the issue here was not that... The issue there was not that I was wrong necessarily, was that Gumiho pressured when he was only at like 140, 150 supply. Like, he moved forward and almost told Reynor to go kill my army. I'm thinking he thought that there was a opportunity to counter because he just took out just as much army, right? But Reynor's Remax is so good. And his Viper control is very good. I think those are the same 5 Vipers. Maybe not, but, you know, he's only lost 1 or 2 that he's had the entire time. But yeah. Point is, the end there, we saw that Vipers were kind of the key to victory. And I'm not sure what Gumiho was planning on doing, what his ultimate endgame was, because that didn't look too convincing. It might have been an issue of Reynor was just stronger than he thought he would be against that specific composition. It could be an issue that he didn't get to the perfect macro stage he was hoping for, so he felt like he couldn't get into Vikings. Maybe he was going to go into Vikings after he got like 12 Liberators, but never really got to that point. I don't know. But Reynor, no matter what I can hypothesize here, the point is Reynor is looking quite good. Gumiho is going to have to think of another way to tackle this kid. Next map's going to be Parasite. These were maps done by Vetoes, so not Loser's Pick. If you're watching the Loom League earlier today. I'm going to guess that they both were comfortable with this map getting through. I don't think Terrans are necessarily uncomfortable on this map if they're comfortable playing mech. Yeah. But if they don't want to play a long game, if they don't want to play mech, then maybe that is when this map suddenly is maybe a veto. But as far as, you know, default veto maps go, it's basically just stasis. Everything else seems to be good to go for the pros. I haven't heard too many complaints on maps besides stasis. So, in the bottom right, up 1, it is the blue Zerg, Reynor. In the top left is the red Terran, it is Gumiho. He's not going to try to end the game with a T-Rex or something like that. He probably is going to go into mech. It's just a question of what type of mech. You could certainly argue that he could have played, you know, stronger into the Cyclone Hellion stuff, taken trades and off of his 4 bases, maybe eventually overrun Reynor. You could argue that, but I was talking that entire game about how I've seen Zergs mostly handle Cyclone Hellion. I won't use the games I've seen in the past 3 days to say for a fact that the style does not work, because that's just a little too, you know, only the Sith deal and absolutes type deal, and I don't want to do that. But personally, I've never liked that composition versus Zerg, even back when it was looking awfully powerful. There was a time where Gumiho was using it and he was winning a decent amount of games, but I felt like it was a short-term thing, and it indeed was. You know, you bring it out to kind of remind Zergs that this can happen, and they go, oh, right, oops, I thought it was something else, and they die to it, or they underestimate it, or any variety of that. But I don't think you bring it out as the stock standard thing you do. Just one person's opinion. Obviously, many Terrans disagree with that opinion as they continue to go for Cyclone Hellions. And I'm sure they have the massive amount of games on ladder to back them up that it does in fact work. Just coincidentally not on the stream a lot of the time. So it was a command center first, which is I noted this last time I feel like I cast, well, maybe it was TY, maybe it was Gumiho, I don't remember, but another Terran did it, and I was like, why isn't this a thing more often? It does give you a boost for the rest of the game, and there's not too many things Azuri can do to punish it. Like, even if they go for a pool first, unless it's like a 14 pool, or God forbid a 12 pool, right? Like, which I guess it would be 12 pool. But the point is, like, unless it's a one base, that's where I was going with. Unless it's a one base, like Roach, or just like super quick speedling, all in, like, it's not really punishable. And a speedling all in would punish it in the same way that it punishes a non-CC first, right? So a regular early pool, just a pool first, doesn't even get here in time to kill the SCV. The command center is literally done by that time. It's always been the trick to the CC first. So I really wonder why it's fallen out of style. Some people don't bother getting a Reaper with it, which I can see being a weakness in the scouting-wise for this build, but, you know, clearly Gumiho did get a Reaper. Get that at home, though, and despite keeping it at home, still loses an SCV. Also lets the Ling get in there to get a nice full scout. Not that the Overlord wasn't going to do that anyways. But it sees the timing of the starport. Third CC is, in fact, on the way, and that's something it didn't see, but that's where Reynor has this. Plus, the timing of the starport might have told him Super Ghost Zerg players probably have that timing down as far as, you know, whether it was a third CC first or not. Reaper's finally going to go over and scout. I thought Reynor's a particularly cheesy player, so I guess this is a safe call on most accounts. And it's not like Gumiho is playing literally the greediest he possibly can. You know, last game he got that tank, or 2 tanks in fact first, kind of for a push, but also in case there was anything aggressive. And he does go into Banshees, which the only weakness that this opener has is to an all-in that includes Queens transporting over, which hasn't really happened recently, so I think it's good to go. Lair is finally on the way, something that Reynor does need. He's going to want an Overseer to chase down these Banshees. Sees that the barracks being lifted like this, I mean, it's not to kill the Overlords right there. Means that it is going to be mech, and that's not a surprise considering it's Parasite. Parasite's got this third base that has 2 chokes that you can wall up even, so it's very hard to break as the Zerg player. And then once you get your 4th down, which hopefully you can do, the 5th isn't such a wide reach, right? When it gets to, you know, it comes to 6th and 7th, and, you know, when it does come to protecting all 5 bases at once, yes, there's a lot of back and forth. It's not like, oof. Proxima Station, was that what it was called? What was the map that was literally, was it Dusk Towers? Maybe it was Dusk Towers, but you know, like the one that was literally 4 bases for free. Literally. And behind the expansion natural, or behind the main natural, and then you had a third where your natural would usually be in any other map. It was insane. And the 4th was like right around the corner. That was a couple of boring games. I think it was Dusk Towers. So 1-1 has started for Reynor, something that he was able to do without really needing to also get a lot of roaches. So obviously his plan is to go into Roach Hydra most likely, certainly the Hydras, right? There's the Roach one, there we go. Again, like if you can avoid getting the roaches, if you can deflect Hellions with just whatever Lings you made, or whatever Queens you have, then more power to you. Literally, more power to you as your drone count gets up, skyrocketed forward far faster than the Terran would feel comfortable with. Not that Gumiho really expects this opener to do much to Reynor. That's not a no-go zone. But it's still nice that the Zerg player wouldn't read so accurately into a bunch of things. And there we go. I think this happened last time. They didn't get that many drones. Could be different here. Already a decent split. Looks like we're missing the game heart. So here we go. 13 drones. We do 14. And that should be it as the Lings come back. So 14 drones, a little bit better, a little bit sooner, I think, than last game, too. But it is still something that you have to recall, like... Oh, where's that scan going down? Oh, well, creep tumors. It is something that, you know, yes, it is... It's a good amount at 6 minutes in the game, 6:30 minutes in the game. overall, when you consider how late even a Cyclone push will probably be, like, this is time that Reynor can make up for. He instantly makes 15 drones, 6 more on the way to put him back over the 70 count, already on 4 bases, and keeping tabs on his opponent and his composition, which he sees is indeed Cyclone Hellion. So he knows that he can't just, you know, not build army, but now there's not a reason not to build army. He's back up to 74 drones. Because at any point, this army could come across the map, but it's not the same as having Hellions kill your drone line into a 637-minute double medevac drop, right? Which have already hit, and which have already killed Reynor, who's not going for very much. Army-wise, sorry. Just the roaches now popping out barely in time. He's got the hive on the way already. That's going to be an 8-minute hive. Dear God, 2-2. I mean, this status really have to make a lot of stuff. And while now it's a little scary, man, he doesn't have to go up that farther in drones. He does, though. He goes up to 78 drones. And he's deflecting what is actually a scary amount of cyclones if they're being rallied with only 12 roaches. And not even that much creep spread. Enough to make Gumiho clear it up, of course, but still, like, not that much. Things are still looking very good for the Zerg player. But again, Gumiho, maybe not so focused on what he can do in the mid-game, is already on his way to a 4th. Not the 4th that you would expect, but it is a 4th that you can kind of defend and attack from starting point, where you can rally forward. And then if you do get caught by surprise, they overwhelm you, then you can hopefully go in and defend it with the planetary. Now, the Banshees would add a ton of DPS, but they're not really with the main army, as the main army of Reynor collapses in on the Hellions and Cyclones of his opponents. The upgrade's looking pretty good for Reynor, just the single +1 armor of the Cyclones to help out a little tiny bit. There's no point to get the attack anymore because the attack doesn't benefit the spell that is the lock-on, which is really what you're looking for. The Banshees did take out the Queens. I saw Reynor move his Queens over and it's like, I don't know if that's going to be enough, and it wasn't, but some of the Banshees are low, and remaking Queens is not so bad since Reynor does have so much economy. A little supply block, sure, but still at 3 Queens, still has some injects going. Currently trying to track these down. You might want to use the Viper's Abduct on these first and foremost, but I don't think they have the energy. Gumiho really trying to get a lot of harassment done. Finally finds an opening. No, never mind. I thought he did it. He's going to get the drones, which is still an opening. He racks that kill count up to about 30. About 30? About! But doesn't get the hatchery like I thought he would. So that's a nice save by Reynor, who will be able to replace those drones. It only sent him down to 64 anyways. But I still would say overall this is a better game for Gumiho, right? Like, he's gotten more drone damage done, and he's really restricted the amount of creep spread. But he hasn't super restricted the evolution of the Zerg here, as you see Vipers again being a problem for him. Seems like his next step, the transformation of the Terran, the evolution of the Terran, is going to be the Raven here. But remember that Ravens in mass are not really so scary. You get a couple of them, sure, those are always useful. A couple of Ravens, Interference Matrix, I guess in this case a Viper. Or do an anti-armor missile. Like, those are all good things, but you can't mass Ravens and say, okay, that's my late game army. Finally, the Banshee's being taken care of, but they are opening up avenues. This time, Reynor does have a large portion of roaches, but with that many Hellions, with Blue Flame especially, his drone's going to get toast either way. A little bit of SimCity helped out, almost, but not quite enough, and now that kill count goes from about 30 to up to 47. And Reynor is not able to comfortably get ahead on these bases. He's going to lose his 4th base, in fact. Gumiho now really running him ragged. Things are really starting to fall behind for such an amazing first 8 minutes of this game. Reynor is really starting to lose control. No creep spread, no 5th base, no 4th base. And the drone count is down to now a more modest 56. Oopsie daisy. Reynor's getting sick and tired of running around. He's going to go for a counterattack, but there are some tanks. And remember, if you attack into a Cyclone army and feel like you need to retreat, you will just lose. You'll bleed off units as the lock-on lasts for quite a long time, quite a distance. Reynor at least has started his +3 attack, something that you can't chrono, so at least you got it started, then you got started. Hopefully it'll help you out later on. But most importantly, more important than that +3, even as nice as it is to get going, he needs to get those hatcheries up. So he's going to double expand, and he didn't really spend a lot of units attacking like that, so he doesn't have to replace many. So he's got the extra minerals to double expand. But he still doesn't have any creeps at all. His queens died, and he didn't really remake them. He's still only at 3, in fact, and that seems like a big mistake. The creepster doesn't necessarily help you pounce on top of what is still a very fast army, but it does help you predict where the army is going to go, which has been the biggest problem for Reynor so far. Gumiho is absolutely controlling this game, and, I mean, so far controlling it, that he's even taken the bottom left base almost aggressively against the Zerg player. Looks like Reynor SimCity was kind of hurting him a little bit. I wasn't even sure what that was building. Maybe an evolution chamber? Looks like Abducts, and the Viper count is just already too good, though. 9 Vipers, yeah. Samesies. Twinsies at the thought process there. I think 9's totally fine. It's a little possible he accidentally made more than he wanted, but I'm going to go with 9s on purpose. And Abducts and Blinding Clouds even would have been really good. But he had so many Vipers, he could have literally abducted every single unit, which is kind of what he did. Now, maybe is the time for Reynor to shine. He does not know about this bottom left base, and it is turning into a planetary. He doesn't have the upgrades on it quite yet, but it'll be annoying to find and try and... Yeah, if it's an orbital, you send some lings over there. If it's a planetary, you gotta send almost your whole army sometimes. This Overlord's gonna see what he's hoping is a 5th base. And he's gonna think, oh, I'm not doing so poorly, but it's really not. I mean, even SCVs are transferred over here to get the gas geyser, but a main fight goes down. Ravens are included now, so anti-armor is here. Where are the Vipers? 8 Vipers not helping out, even against the unsieged tanks. There they are. They're getting up energy on whatever they could find. Extractors, evolution chambers, maybe a little bit of the tech structures. And a little bit of his hive went down. Reynor has got to be all about cost efficiency, but I think he's been doing pretty well in that regard for the last couple of minutes. So, you know, he's losing overall in resources lost. I think in the last maybe 1-2 minutes, or the last couple of fights, he's the one that's been winning. Reynor still really needs to get that creep spread out. This is never going to stop, or it should never stop. Even as Gumiho goes on to more advanced units. If he goes on to more advanced units. He should never stop running around with his Hellions and his Cyclones. A couple of ducks will bite Gumiho in the butt, I suppose, for doing that. And these roaches do cancel the supposed 5th, but actually 6th of our Terran player. Now they're going to go ahead and jump on top of the tanks that are unsieged. They're going to try and get into the natural base. They take out 2 tanks. That was a lot of roaches. Overall, I guess that was a worthwhile trade. And Reynor is starting to bank up a big amount of cash again, as he's got that 4th base up for a while. He does have his 5th. He could go up to more drones. That's exactly what he's doing, up to 75. Also adding on that Spire. If you can get to a greater Spire, that does seem to be a very, very, very good option against this style of mech. And especially now, I guess, it really isn't so much the Cyclones. There's a lot of tanks in here, too. So just basically against mech, Broodlords are good. The Vipers almost lose their lives, but the Vikings get a little shy around those Hydras, so we're down to 7 Vipers instead of 8. 6. Just kidding, 6 Vipers. Gumiho has also been able to upgrade his army, so he's about to be on 3-2. I guess Reynor's also on 3-3. Yeah, so he's still behind. Oh, no, 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 no! Oh, no, no, no! Woo, okay. Okay, that's going to be 2 less Vipers. Parasitic Bomb at least, but only 3 Vipers survive there, and that is a big, big, big blow to Reynor's cost efficiency. Some roaches are going to find the orbital, which is the lifted main. But again, Reynor is not super clear on this this game. He does not know about this bottom left base, which is going to get mined out soon, honestly. The Vipers would have been absolutely huge. A Blinding Cloud here would have been fantastic. But they are currently regaining energy, and there's only 3 of them, so they won't be able to abduct as well, potentially. 3 Vipers with their energy full is still a lot. Orbital does have to be lifted. Roaches on top of the SCVs now. Blow for blow. Reynor is keeping his head above water, it seems. But now, even in the last couple of minutes, he might even be getting ahead. Except for that Viper problem in the middle of the map. He's really been doing a good job taking back the map to at least some regard, as well as taking very good engagements. He's missing out a little bit on gas. I think he was a little late to saturating these. In fact, he's not even full on them. So it's a little bit of a problem with the gas. He is looking towards that Greater Spire, and once he has the Greater Spire, if he can get up to a decent number of Broodlords, I'm talking like 8 to 12, the Cyclones won't really be able to tackle them, and I'm not sure that Gumiho is going to be able to afford the Thors, because he is still kind of trying to remax on the Cyclone Hellion thing. I'm afraid that even with his consistent economy, which is starting to run out, by the way, he might not be able to go into as many Thors as he would like, if he even wants to go into Thors. The reactions from the Terrans we've seen doing this to Broodlords has been attempting to go for Vikings, which we all know roughly how that looks if there's any Vipers in play. If you don't know how it looks, it doesn't look good. Reynor has a maxed out army, a little bit of a bank too in case things go a little wrong. Viper's full on energy. He never remade any more Vipers, and in fact has lost 1 more, so down to just 2 is a little scary. The smoke here is also being a bit of a bother, as he has to poke forward with his Vipers to see what's going on, but that might make them die, and it's just all a little more clumsy to deal with. Oh, big Cyclone run by. That's a large portion of the DPS gone from the army, but I guess if it's tanks not being blinding clouded, that's still a lot of DPS, right? At the end of the day, that's how Splash is going to work. A little more efficient than just individual shooting units. And these units are very good at killing hatcheries. They did not quite lock on in time. Gas Geyser was taken down. A little important, but not as much as it was a couple seconds ago. Roaches, once again with a run-by. These are relatively inexpensive. Not the Ling run-bys we expect from Reynor, and certainly not as inexpensive as Ling run-bys, but they are doing the trick to it. More SCVs have to be taken off, less mining consistently, and just constantly keeping tabs on, you know, if you saw Gumiho putting down 4 command centers, and this is also his other base, then maybe Reynor's feeling a little worse about this game, but so far he's seen a rather desperate base, even. But again, not knowing what that bottom left kind of sucks. Broodlords do make their appearance. They're a little alone, though, and I'm surprised the Cyclones don't try and jump on top of them. Currently, the Vikings, what's the only thing they have to shoot at, right? So they are doing some damage, but only 2 Vikings is not quite enough. As long as the Vikings go down, or Corruptors join into the party, and the Vikings do go down, the Broodlords would have cleaned everything up anyways, and that is going to happen here, as Reynor tries to pull back, still loses the majority of his ground forces, but the Broodlords reign supreme, and Reynor is on 6 bases at this point, with the middle now being taken, something that Gumiho does not know about. And while Reynor is going to watch this game replay sometime later on and see this bottom left base, it didn't end up mattering as much as I thought it would. And it's going to get completely mined out. If this was to go into an hour-long game, then that really matters a lot. But it really seems that Reynor has gained control over the game again. And momentum shifts back and forth, eventually landing in Reynor's favor. It's just a little too good, man. There's a couple of weak spots that Gumiho was able to find to kill those hatcheries, to get those drones. But overall, Reynor was very good about splitting up his units, about controlling his units, his Vipers. Not as perfectly controlled as last game, but still good enough to last quite a long time. And his economy now very strong on these 6 bases with the drones now saturating this base. Going up to those Broodlords could just kind of almost all in on the Broodlord idea and hope that wins in the game, which it should. You know, keep a solid amount of hydras on the ground for these run-bys. But otherwise, everything goes into the air war, which you should be winning. As Terran seems to have some trouble against that, whether it's versus Terran or versus Protoss. Corruptors do find the planetary. Did they see how many minerals were there? No, they didn't, so... You might be hoping this was a new one, but it definitely isn't. Spine Crawler is doing an okay job taking out the blue Fen Hellions. I would have expected them more around the hatchery entirely. Tries to open up an opportunity for the left side, but that's where the Broodlords are, so no go zone there. Now that Reynor is close to max, he will start just purely banking extra minerals and gas. And you really start to diversify his composition, perhaps get more of those Vipers I was talking about. I thought that Gumiho was making Vikings pretty consistently, but I wonder if he had them misrallied, because now we have a bunch popping out, but I thought there would have been more in the previous engagements. Either way, about 5, 6 of them trying to take on the Vipers, but they've already done their damage here. I guess they didn't throw in a parasitic bomb, which would have been nice, but they did do some blinding clouds to force the Cyclones forward, and then once they get the lock on, I guess it doesn't actually stop them, but they weren't forward enough, not enough of them either, to actually shoot down any of these Broodlords. So still good enough, but I think you do want to remake the Vipers. And that was a trade before Reynor was starting to bank a little, so he is also struggling to get purely maxed out. A lot of that maxed out is in Roaches, which are very cheap and not, like, you know, the best units to have, but he still has so many Broodlords left over. Gumiho's not done with this game yet. He did finally lose this base. The Corruptors went over there, I guess, and beat on it. And that's why they weren't there helping initially. At least it's a bit of a base for a base. This one goes down, and it was pretty important mining. Whereas the bottom left is mostly mined out already. Maybe a better trade for Gumiho if he wasn't a little down in this game. Really trying to make the most out of his units, as he has been winning in the resources lost most of the game. Maybe not, you know, 1 or 2 fights that happened around the mid-game, but yeah, most of it, it's been consistently about 6,000. Oh no, I'm actually been reading this wrong. Yeah, Reynor is the one being more cost efficient. Aha! I knew it. But that makes sense. But now he has to be really cost efficient. Now he has to make that reverse, which he's going to try and do here by sniping a couple hatcheries. and taking on the Broodlords or Corruptors when they're a little too far away from their buddies, their Hydras, their Vipers, whatever. We got some Widow Mines on the way. Does he have Drilling Claws? He does not. So while this usually, I mean, it's usually a desperate gambit, and it still is here, it also is usually paired up with Drilling Claws. As the whole point is to drag them on top of the Broodlords and Corruptors, well, the entire army really, and to get them to burrow before they all die. If they don't have Drilling Claws, I think they just all die. It's a pretty big difference. Single Broodlord's gonna help out here. Wishes. I do want to quickly note that the Broodlords have absolutely no upgrades, neither do the Corruptors. So Broodlords get 2 upgrades, Flyer Attack, well, you know, they're Carapace, but also the Flyer Attack and the Melee Attack. None of which has been upgraded. Reynor went pretty fast up to 3-3 and has been comfortable on those upgrades, pure and simple. Not really any upgrades either for Gumiho, of course. Just stuck on 2-3 his grounds. Well, and armor for air. But no ship weapons to have all these Vikings. Reynor is really being run around. Gumiho is playing to the best of his ability, given the situation that he has. He can't really directly take on the Broodlords, but he can maybe find them out of position. You know, literally take out the hatcheries, or even just away from the rest of the army so that maybe he can get a couple of lock-ons. We have Reynor making some lings that are totally unupgraded, but still going to do the job against orbitals. Corruptors go in there and take out the planetary that was still rather healthy. I guess so many STDs are transferred to this 5th. That base is still going strong. Oh, I missed the Widowmine Dragon drop, but it wasn't good enough anyways. So, as hype as it could have been without Drilling Claws, only a couple of them ended up shooting.